Did the note come up? Saying that we are recording?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, and then let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. Dr. Geis, just let me know when you're ready to.
I am ready to go. Having already rehearsed earlier today.
Yep. So just let me know if you're ready to move forward with
As
this.
I said, this is going to be a shorter presentation because the module itself is longer than the other modules if you've taken the other ones, because there's so much stuff to do. You can go ahead and do the next slide though. Go ahead. Yeah. This is part of Project First that you've been helping us out with. It's our innovative grant. The modules are based on the extensive research that we did in looking at outcome-based research on what it takes to get a person with a disability a job, a quality job, especially. So the areas that we've been defining in terms of the modules have been based on the outcomes of the research. We got it down to 4 statistically significant areas, and this is one of them from the CRC domains. And then we, of course, as you all remember from the very first module, we added the piece on PREETs because that's an area that lots of VR counselors don't know much about. Lots of customers don't know much about. And so we added that as part of the a 5th module, not based on the research, but an important area that RSA supported in terms of giving us the money for the research and the grant. This is the 3rd of the 4 modules. Project First, in case you don't remember, is finding innovative rehabilitation services training. The other modules that you've already looked at have been the PREETs module, as I mentioned, the crisis and trauma module, which was statistically significant in the research in terms of predicting quality job placements for customers, and the vocational and career development module, which you gave us great feedback on. And when you see the new version of that, when we put that outline so that you could get your second CRC credit by looking at the final draft of that module, you'll be pleased. It's improved a lot, and much of that was because you were able to give us the feedback that we needed to make it even better. So when you go for that second Vulc credit, I think you'll be pleased based on the feedback that we got from you. The objectives, of course, are to address competencies of qualified rehabilitation counselors and helping people that don't come in with a degree in rehabilitation to learn enough to be able to service our customers. We've been working on reducing the knowledge gap by creating innovative, data-driven, effective, evidence-based modules that can be used by VR counselors to understand the many subsystems that go into getting a person a job. You know, people that are naive in this field think you just get somebody a job. Well, it's not that. It's the quality jobs are gotten by counselors that really know how to use the subsystems and really know how to understand the needs of the client and the functional limitations of the client and how that can match up with the job that they are still perfectly qualified to do, otherwise qualified to do. And that's the match. Understanding the limitations and then finding a good match so that the customer is otherwise qualified to do that job in spite of having some impairment. And that really is that's almost a scientific kind of thing that VR counselors need to be trained to do, because it isn't instinctive. Many people with degrees in social work or general counseling or psychology don't understand the disability issues themselves, don't understand the impairments, don't understand the functional limitations. And that's why this unit is a little bit longer, because it needs to be, because it covers a lot of that stuff that the naive person coming to work with people with disabilities or work in the VR system really doesn't necessarily have. They're self-administered, all of these. They're meant to be done asynchronously, although if a group of people in a particular office wanted to work together at the same time on it, that would be okay too. There are many ways you can use these modules in addition to asynchronous learning. You know, in-service training could be focused around the discussion after the module, people doing the module at about the same time so they can talk about it afterwards. There are many ways that a smart training director in a VR agency could use these modules, especially in their final form, and bear with us, we're getting to the final form soon, so that it wouldn't have to be only asynchronous or of a tutorial nature. You could actually use these modules as a group that a bunch of entry level people take together for screening, and then talk about what other training is needed to bolster their information so that they can do quality job placement. Okay, so this what we're really selling here is a little different than the classic medical model, which you will hear about in the module itself, and is a model. It's not usually perceived as the best model by rehabilitation practitioners, and certainly not by client advocates, but it's a model. And I was just thinking about this before I uh, turned on the machine to talk to you, that um, there's a lot of stuff, as I mentioned before, in this that the general public does not actually have access to in terms of understanding medical and psychosocial aspects of chronic illness and disability that the trained rehabilitation counselor does. And I was thinking back to the very beginning of my career and how lucky I was that, surprisingly, as an undergraduate student, I was a biology major. So I had some awareness of some of the anatomy and physiology and the medical terms and stuff like that, that many people, if they're coming from psychology or social work or even mental health counseling, wouldn't necessarily have access to. That was just a freak thing in my particular entry into the field, but it gave me a quick boost so that within a couple of years, I was teaching medical and psychosocial aspects to our master's level counselors at or potential counselors at my first job in the field. So this particular module is going to talk about conditions and disorders. It's going to talk about tailoring treatments and therapies and devices. It's going to talk about multiple models, not just a medical model, or using the medical model as a basis for understanding functional limitations, which is what really counts when you're looking for a job. Trying to understand the intersectionality of medical and psychological issues in rehabilitation, and then especially and most importantly, the client's experience in working with different disciplines in the field. Because sometimes we forget that our customers aren't only working with us as rehabilitation counselors, but they're actually working with many people that are intervening on a daily basis in terms of their ability to function. And so that's really important too. I think it really helped me remember that good rehabilitation provision involves working with a whole team of people. It's not just something you do by yourself and on your own. So that this is a kind of an inspirational. I was thinking about the time between my little practice session earlier today and where we are right now. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because it's very well covered in the model. And as I said, usually it's something that we're not real excited about. You know, those of us that also perceive ourselves as client advocates are not necessarily happy with the medical model, but it has its place, as all models do, in the sense that we're going to be dealing with, whether you're a counselor or customer, you're going to be dealing with the medical world. And so to be able to explain your needs from a functional perspective, to be able to explain functionally to an employer the limitations and the strengths of a particular client are all really important. And I think really this does get to that. It not only looks at the language and the players on the team and all of that, but it talks about and it gets to the functional aspects of what do you do with all this information when you're trying to get a person a job. And if it doesn't you are the people to tell us that we need to add more to it, or that we need to change it, or we need to reshape or reframe how we're presenting it, because that's what it's really all about. We really want to get to functional aspects of impairments and how they affect work and how they support, not the impairment, but the strengths, how they support the ability to obtain competitive, gainful employment. Okay, next slide. A more woke version of how to approach this is the biopsychosocial model. Most people don't get real upset about that one because it takes into account an alternative to the narrow medical and the narrow social model and integrates both. It emphasizes the complexity of the interplay of biological, psychological, and social factors in a person's ability to function. And it acknowledges the effects of health conditions which depend on individual and social circumstances. You know, there isn't just a person with this impairment. There's a person who happens to have an impairment. And we don't then define people by their impairments, but rather how they can navigate around those impairments to be a productive worker. The biopsychosocial model shifts from medical diagnosis to understanding individual subjective experiences and functional capacity in dealing with chronic illness and disability. And that's kind of where we want to be. This unit will talk about body systems and make it very straightforward and easy to understand for you. Want to go next slide? It'll talk about medical specialties and understanding where people fit on the team, people that we all have to interact with, or that the customers have to interact with when they are navigating their needs. Next one. It's going to talk about other therapies and therapists and team members that play into the big picture. And not every one of these is for every client, but they're people that a client could deal with, and they're people that you will probably deal with as you help your clients navigate the medical and psychosocial aspects of their conditions. Okay, next one. It will go through a variety of issues that might affect some or many of your clients. Go ahead, next one. It's going to talk about the experience of health conditions. And now we're getting, I think, into the stuff that is going to be really the most helpful in terms of job placement. Not that all of this isn't helpful, but talking about how health conditions are influenced by personal factors, social relationships, socioeconomic status, culture, environment, activities, and individual goals. That's what we talked about when we talked about all these subsystems that come together in terms of really making a quality job placement. It'll talk about personal resources, coping abilities, and social support networks that are necessary for improved functional effectiveness. And again, kind of balancing in between the medical and the biopsychosocial model to show that while there are many models, that this is the one that is usually preferred in both teaching and in use for understanding disability. There's a bunch of stuff on terminology, and there's a very important section on health conditions that cause stress, because we know it's not only the impairment, but the consequences of that impairment that cause stress that may be the real factor that's getting in the way of competitive employment. And so I having really thought a lot about this stress piece is really critical in terms of the way that you interact with your customers and clients and the way that they interact with employers and potential jobs in the future. And the next one is
Assistive technology.
a little bit on assistive technology, not enough, because I'd love to do a whole module on that itself. Maybe we can talk RSA into letting us do that with the Friends of our Rehab Engineers, because this is a whole thing in itself, although it'll share with you that I think hopefully all of you already know, and that a naive person taking this will learn is that the technology doesn't have to be real high tech. Sometimes the technologies that are needed are really simple and not terribly expensive, but they're matched well to the needs of the customer. So the value of the rehabilitation engineers is not buying the most expensive piece of equipment or the most complicated program that is difficult for the customer to learn in the first place, but making the match. And that's the magic, making the match of the right technology with something that the customer will actually use in the future to enhance their employability. Okay. And a little bit, not a lot, on aging with disability. Those of us that are older appreciate the fact that if you live long enough, you are probably going to acquire some impairments and limitations. And those of us that are working longer realize that we want to maintain our employment. So while this is not a huge focus, at least an understanding of the fact that as society has changed and people are living and working longer, that people who might not have been clients in the past will become clients in the future, and that they have needs too, and that they deserve to be addressed. So that kind of walks you through this engaging model, which, as I said, is a little bit longer than the other ones, but well worth it. You will start the module now or at a later time if it's convenient for you. And at the end of that, you will come and complete the survey and get your CRC credit. And as I said, there'll be another chance at this after we've taken your advice and done some revisions for you to get a second CRC credit for looking at the close to final product. Now, as I said, we were practicing earlier, and unfortunately, we can do the question page because they may have questions. One more ahead, yeah, because you'll see those pieces again when we put you back to it, or when you click onto it. We found a couple glitches in not the quality of the slides, but in the technology of moving at two places in the program from one to another, which will be fixed in the next generation. But Patrick Krolik is going to tell you how to get through that so that you can see it today if you don't want to wait for those things to get fixed, or sooner than later.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Geist. I appreciate you handing it over to me. So I did end up talking to the graphic designer, and he did address the one issue that we had when it would not move forward. The next button would not work. He did address it. I have updated the link. If you want to jot down Dr. Geist's email, if there's a question or a further question, I'm going to walk you through how to navigate when we go back a slide, and we can open up the module. But if you have any questions, you're welcome to use those two emails that are there to reach out to us. So if you'd like to copy the links and open them up into a browser, please do. The module is on the left. The Qualtrics survey is on the right. The module itself does have a spot for comments along the right side of the screen, so that you can actually make comments on the slide itself, saying something like, "This information was great. This information was not clear." That helps us then be able to evaluate it from just that slide piece, which you may not have the opportunity to do in the Qualtrics survey. So going back to the module, on the left side, there's 3 lines, and that is a table of contents. Sometimes at points, if you do not go in sequential order, the next button will not illuminate. And some of the questions as well too have a incorrect answer for the question, and says that you passed. And if you do that, it may not progress forward. But if you just use a table of contents on the side, you can go to the next slide. So if you open that up, go ahead and click those 3, you'll see a large table of contents open up. Each of them have a different chapter with slides inside. You can just go directly to the next slide and go ahead and view it. So that might be a piece that you have to do. So we'd like you to, and I'll go ahead and I'll put these links into chat once I close this piece so you can get at it. The CEU is attached to the Qualtrics survey. The Qualtrics survey is more asking questions about, was it pleasing to the eye? Was it, is it more, it's more data driven than getting comments back. So that's why we put the CEU at the end of that Qualtrics list, because we want to know about you. We want to know about your vocational profession and where you are, those types of things. And there's spots for comments in there that if you'd like to give us, that would be great. Those are accumulated, and we collect those and we put those into a qual form and a quan form to be able to then give to our graphic designer as a nice clean sheet, so that he can go ahead or she can go ahead and make those adjustments to the module as needed. So for those of you on the line, if you want to go ahead and copy those links, so just copy and then highlight, copy, put it into a new tab up top. Go ahead and input that in your system, and it should open up. Same thing for the Qualtrics survey. If you want to grab that link, copy it, open it up into a new tab, we would appreciate it. I'll give everybody just kind of an opportunity to do that. And then I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here in about 4 minutes. And then I'll go ahead and I'll put those into chat. And then we can kind of wait for some questions and answers if people do have something, because I can't see chat at the moment because I'm sharing.
If, yeah, I think the only chat was the request to put them into the, add it to the chat. So, but right now, can they click from where they are if they just, after we stop talking, they want to go?
Yeah, they can.
Yeah.
They can.
So if you want to do it right now and not wait for another time, as soon as we're finished with any questions, you can start number 1. And then at the end of number 1, it'll actually take you, no, you'll get an email, right? When you finish number 1, no?
They're gonna have to cut, like I said, they're gonna have to copy the links out of this website, out of this
So
PowerPoint.
everybody needs to copy the second one to
Correct.
be able to get their survey under credit.
Correct.
The first one, if you have the time right now, you can just go right ahead and do it.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
But you need to extract both links to be able to access the module and then access the Qualtrics survey. Survey's not long. I think it's maybe 20 questions or so. So it's very short. We'll take a lot of your time. More time will probably be taking the module itself, but we do appreciate you taking the module now. You've put some time aside to be able to do that. So for the people who are going to be looking at the webinar, the links will be updated and they'll be there for you to go ahead and select, and we'll be live. They'll also be in the YouTube. They'll be actually in the body of the YouTube comments themselves, so that you'd be able to click on those when they're presented onto YouTube. Hi, Ms. Cliff. What's the question?
Hey, so it's somewhat hard to, using the screen reader, to click in the chat and get that link. Can you email them out?
I can email it to you. If you
Thank
would like,
you.
if you would like to get it, if you want an email to you, send an email to that UMID, UMID at memphis.edu. And then
Okay,
I'll reply to you with those links. I'll put both links in the email reply.
thanks.
Yeah,
That's an easy way to get it. umid@memphis.edu.
correct.
And the staff will get you an easy link to just click.
Yeah,
If you
I
want to
Awesome.
copy it or can't copy it.
can do
Thank you.
that too. Absolutely.
I think that that's something we need to think about in terms of making this accessible also in the module. So there's something to talk to the graphic designer about in terms of making sure that that there are ways for everybody who eventually looks at this can get all sorts of feedback on it, can give feedback, or who can actually look at the module itself. Okay. Any other questions?
All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I will go ahead and I'll put those into chat for those of you who'd like it. Grab the first one. Oh, that's pretty long. Come on. I've lost my clicker. Where is it? Here it is. Close, then you're gonna close down one of the PowerPoints. I'm getting that survey for you.
By the way, in terms of the CRC credit, if you are not a CRC, it still is a CEU that you can convert to whatever your own professional organization is that you are certified by. So, those CEUs are interchangeable. So you could like take it and use it for social work or psychology or whatever. Sometimes there's a small fee connected to that, but we went with the CRC because that's what many of the people in the field would see as the primary credential. But don't think it's limited to just CRC. It's a valid CEU that's been vetted by CRC. And there's 2 for each of the 5 modules. So you could do half a year's worth of continuing education if you are a CRC by just doing our modules for us.
And like you said, for the people who are going to be viewing the webinar, they'll be available on the YouTube channel that we're going to open up once we get some edits done to the module itself from your feedback. So if you know a colleague who wasn't able to join us, we're going to be sending out emails of invites that when we open those webinars up, and we hope that you can pass that information along. And I'm going to stop recording.